Stop stalling.
Well, just telling you. Okay. There we go.
It's very leany.
Who, my mic?
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Where everybody's waiting on you.
We were waiting for the air handler to go off. It's done. Now we're ready.
Okay.
All right.
Go on. Is it awkward?
Nope, not at all. I'm ready. Just getting ready here.
You're making it awkward.
What do you mean?
Oh my gosh. Welcome.
You're going to lead me in word by word. I like it. Why don't you give us the intro? Oh my gosh. Welcome to Emotionships, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason. I'm your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my cosmic co-host, Mallory Redmond. Mal, welcome to the program today.
Why are you making big hand gestures?
I'm Italian. That's what we do.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
Almost finished with that cleanse we've been talking about.
Man, I am so over it. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, good things cause a little bit of pain in our life.
That's true. Yep, last week. Next week at this time, I'll be drinking a big old coffee.
Have you ever been to a naked pool party?
No.
Gelman just perked up. Looks like
Is that why your tummy's tan?
Oh.
You hold a naked pool.
Gelman holds naked pool parties. Well, in the news today, very interesting. Bill Gates is
Newly single.
Almost got a lot to work through over there with Melinda.
Yes, technically. Yes.
It was in the New York Post today that his inner circle is well aware of his womanizing and his naked pool parties.
Oh, I did not hear this. Okay, so I did hear about
Going all the way back to Harvard, by the way.
Oh.
Go on. You did hear.
How did it not leak
Oh
sooner
boy,
than that?
aren't we going to talk about it?
Oh, okay. No, I did hear about, or I did read an article about his old girlfriend that he spends a week with a year.
Yes, that he asked his girlfriend if she was cool with him marrying Melinda. And I guess there is a district, a porn district outside of Boston that he was a frequent visitor of, according to this New York Post article that we will put in the notes for you so you can see it. And I guess it's been a thing for him for quite some time. And he and Melinda even took a year to figure out if they were going to stay in their marriage together because she was well aware of his womanizing. And the article goes on to say, I'm just repeating the article, ladies and gentlemen, that in exchange for breaking news and information from Microsoft, the media kept things quiet. Go figure.
Interesting. Wow, Bill.
Well, I mean, he had to put that energy somewhere. I'm not approving of it.
Sure.
I'm just saying.
I mean, they were married for a long time.
Yeah.
So she was aware of the womanizing for this whole time?
Yep.
That's a long time.
Yep. It's very interesting. She wanted him to commit, and I guess he would try periodically, and then
I wonder what finally did it for them after all those years. I wonder what the straw was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's really interesting with how heavily involved he has been with the race to the moon, but then also COVID-19. You know, he patented or trademarked both actually COVID type vaccines and information back as early as I think 2007.
He's a very because I lived in Seattle for a while. He's a very quote unquote typical guy there. There's a couple of really well known or well liked burger stands, and you would go to the burger stand and see him standing in line with everybody else getting a burger.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very in the community.
Yeah,
just trying to be normal.
Mean, yeah, that's having worked with a handful of billionaires and well-known people. It's kind of how they try to keep their sanity.
Sure.
It's just not having a bodyguard and going and standing in line at a burger joint.
Right.
But that backfires more times than not. I mean, look at Tiger Woods, who might not, I think he will, but might not play golf again because he was driving
a long road ahead of him.
his Hyundai going from one place to the next.
That's what he was driving?
Yeah, they sponsor him.
Oh, okay.
And so, he never hit his brakes, probably fell asleep at the wheel. And like, if you're worth $1 billion, which is a lot of money, right? 1,000 million, you probably need a driver. It's just you're insuring yourself. You're like protecting your greatest asset, which is you.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so you would think, first of all, from what the article says, Bill Gates has been this way since he was in college, and his inner circle is very familiar with this. And you would think the cancel culture would come after him. I don't know if you saw also in the news today that NBC will not be doing the Golden Globes because of all of the cultural issues and race issues involved with, in the past, the Golden Globes. And Tom Cruise is giving back his previous awards because of, I don't know, the racism tied up in the Golden Globes. But I highly doubt this article in the New York Post today will go anywhere because powerful people know how to work the system.
True. I mean, I think that's true-ish. I mean, it didn't work so well for like Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, we could go.
Am I opening a can of worms? I don't really want to.
I mean, I don't. I am the furthest thing from a conspiracy theorist, but
that's not true. You're not the furthest.
Okay, well, I'm not. I don't pursue them that often. But that being said, like, I would be shocked if that guy was really dead. I told you that I read the book from the gentleman at the CIA that was responsible for trying to bring him to justice, but he had connections and was running those honey traps at such a high level. The fact that there was no footage of him being strangled in prison, has to tell you something. And I
did see his body being rolled out, but that was just a fake?
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah.
I don't know about that. Well, I think I'm less of a conspiracy theorist than you are, but I get it.
Yeah.
Crazier things have happened.
Oh, for sure.
Do you think Elvis is still alive?
No, definitely not.
Oh, okay.
Definitely not. But Epstein had dirt on the most powerful people in the world and spread it out all over the world that if something happened to him, he could release it. And I mean, we're talking about a number of our past presidents, let alone prime ministers in other countries. That's a whole nother subject.
Okay.
Getting back to
Bill.
Back to Bill and the cancel culture. I mean, there are certain people that, the large majority of the media use Bill Gates equipment. And I'm saying you'll see like Weinstein and other people and be brought to justice.
Bill Cosby.
Yeah, Bill Cosby. But that's because they lose their bartering chips. Maybe down the road will something come out about Bill's womanizing, Bill Gates womanizing, but he still has too many bartering chips. And that's the way this world works. It works off of power. And if people think you have power, or if you do have buying power or staying power, like those things go away. And it's unfortunate, but it's the way that it works.
So you don't think that Bill Gates can be canceled, but Microsoft cannot?
Well, I don't think, I think because of Bill's ability to pick up the phone and call the people that are in charge of earnings for some of these media companies, I don't think they want the battle. And again, it's like our tax bracket and our new president coming in and changing things tax wise. What everyone doesn't understand is that if you are wealthy, you have access to CPAs and attorneys that know how to find the smallest of loopholes so you get out of it. And it's so hypocritical with most politicians that will talk about, people need to pay their fair share, and it will come heavily. Now the Democrats are in control, and they'll talk about taxes and all that. Go look at their personal taxes. Most of them will pay somewhere around 10 to 14%. That's what Mitt Romney was paying when he was running for president, 13%. And they'll come in and they'll raise it, to 30% for quote unquote wealthy individuals who just don't have the resources or the wherewithal to hire the right kind of attorney that gets them out of it. When we sold a business in 2005 for a lot of money, we found resources and resources were presented to us through attorneys where you could have money wired into the Caribbean. It would go from the Caribbean to Canada. And there was a company in Canada that literally would bring cash across the border, your cash across the border in a briefcase so you would not have to pay tax on it.
Super sketchy.
It's everywhere. And what would be better is if we had like a flat tax of 8% or 10%, and it doesn't matter how much you make or how little you make, that's what you're going to pay no matter what. But politicians use talking points to control their own power and to make it sound a certain way to people that don't know better. But the truth of the matter is a lot of the politicians, know the policy makers and they know where the loopholes are and they pay attorneys to get them out of it. And that's the hypocrisy in all of it. And it's the same thing, like, again, Bill Gates, Melinda, his wife, is pretty much done with, from what it sounds like, the womanizing, and is not going to turn her head the other way anymore. But, my opinion about it is this article will go nowhere because he still has way too much power. Maybe down the line, but like Bill Cosby, what did he have to offer? A Netflix special, which we saw him a couple months before all of this came out, and he was still hilarious.
Really? Like in a show?
Yeah. He came to the Schuster Center.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he was good. But this is why we've been talking about the church, and my philosophy is that if the church doesn't lead society, society will lead the church. And if the church is supposed to be the mechanism or the organization that puts life and integrity and justice and love and hope in people, and they're not doing that, instead they become influenced by the culture and their society, then society ends up leading the church. And it was never supposed to be about morals. The movement that Jesus started, it was supposed to be about life.
Well, I think that's one of the really sad things about, like, I don't think Bill Gates should be canceled or whatever, but that he will. Well, I know this is new.
Whoa.
I don't think that he should be canceled. I think it's clear that that he needs help.
Sure.
Like that there is some glaring like emotional holes in his life that when you don't cancel someone, or when you do cancel someone, when canceling or not canceling is the only part of the conversation, the whole thing gets missed. Like the whole point of it gets missed.
Well, and worse than that, repeated.
Exactly.
Because we're not learning.
Right.
And it's interesting that you say that. I had a chance to share some content this past weekend, and it was about in Genesis 1:27. It says that in the image of God, God created man, and the word there is atom, so it's referring to mankind, not just a male. And then it says in male and female, he created them in his image. And so what that tells us is in the image of God is male and female. But all of us, if you're listening to this podcast, have been raised in a heavily dominated masculine world, in a male world. And we tend to, when we hear that, we tend to want to go in a direction of like male versus female. That's not it, ultimately. Ultimately, you have a masculine side to who you are as an individual, and you have a feminine side to who you are. And I've got a little graphic here that we'll throw up in the podcast, and I'll list some of these things. But like, if you're not balanced between your masculine and feminine energy, you end up, you end up being dysfunctional relationally, because those two sides don't keep each other in check and work in balance.
Okay, so can you say more about how you identify masculine versus feminine energy?
Yeah.
Beyond
I brought it up because of what you said with Bill. Chances are he has a lot of masculine energy and has suppressed, like most men and most women have suppressed his feminine side. Your left side, the left side of your body in the energy world represents your feminine energy, and your right side represents your masculine energy. And so if you work off of like Einstein or Nikola Tesla, their understanding of the world, that it's all energy, that all matter is energy, then you need to see that everything that we see and interact with in society today is a manifestation of what's happening spiritually, or another way to say that is energetically. And so I can pull this up and list some of the characteristics of feminine energy. Healthy feminine energy is like unconditional love, understanding, like nurturing, tenderness, kindness, intuitive, creative, feeling, emotional, allowing, sensitive, surrender, radiance, flow, and stillness. Compared to here are some characteristics of masculine energy: confidence, inner strength, responsibility, logic, support, stability, direction, clarity, protection, discipline, certainty, and assertive. And so you can see, no matter what sexual organs you have or how you identify, how you need both of those in your life.
For sure. I could see why. I have two things, and then you can go on. It could be really disorienting, especially for like a teenager who has, like, let's say, for example, male sexual organs, but a lot of the feminine energy, like why that would be really disorienting.
For sure.
And like lead you to feel a lot of chaos and shame and confusion.
For sure. Well, I think we have gender and identity as a major topic in front of us right now, because we've made it so difficult to be a male that expresses or has a lot of feminine energy. And then also, when we say that your right side is your masculine side and your left side is your feminine side, when we work on people at Body Garage Dayton, even females have a lot of masculine energy locked in them on their right side, because in a lot of cases they've had to hustle and make up for a man that wasn't there. But the irony there is that the man was not there because he has nothing but masculine energy. Mm-hmm. And so he's out hunting and trying to establish value, because he hasn't been allowed to live into his feminine energy, which is like settling and nurturing and expressing and feeling your feelings.
So true.
This is something that I've learned a lot from you, that you've helped me with, is just this idea of feeling your feelings, and feelings not being a bad thing. I was raised in an environment where like feelings were associated with quote unquote flesh, and therefore they are bad. Oh. And so you end up bottling.
Well, not all feelings are bad, though.
Correct.
I mean, I would imagine that you were encouraged to be joyful and
exactly.
Happy.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, it wasn't said, but the way that everyone lived, and I think this is real in the church today, that if you are godly, you are happy. If you are not happy and you feel heavy, or you are depressed, then you are further from God than if you were happy.
Right. Not only that, like not only on a religious sphere, but also I think a lot of people just don't have the capacity, energy, patience to sit with people in their more difficult feelings.
For sure.
I mean, I even struggle with that, and I'm a feelings person. And when my kid is screaming or crying because they're trying to express feelings, it's very hard for me to not say, like, stop crying.
Yeah, for sure.
Stop crying and be okay, because you're making me feel like I'm not okay.
For sure.
So
well, and that's our culture's obsession with being fixers. Like, I'm a fixer. Mm-hmm. And it's because we were raised, I think one of the major reasons is because we've been raised in an environment where you automatically are born and feel like you are behind. And so you've got to find problems to fix in order to establish your worth and why you deserve to be here or why you deserve to be a part of the conversation.
Right. Does it list, so you said healthy, feminine.
Yeah.
Does it list unhealthy?
It does. If like what you will resort to if you have unhealthy feminine energy, and again, men and women have feminine and masculine energy. We have both. And so if you have wounded, the language is wounded feminine energy, you're going to resort to being a victim, powerless, feeling powerless, weakness. You will manipulate. You'll withhold things because you want to control and like have things that people need to talk to you about. Needy. You will be codependent, oversensitive, and over-emotional. And so often when you have wounded feminine energy, it's because you were raised in a masculine dominant home where you were told or shown, more than likely, that all of the feminine energy is like, it's a waste of time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help you get to where you're going. Mm-hmm. And so feeling like a victim, powerless, weakness, oversensitive, over-emotional, those are signs that your feminine energy is not healthy. Wounded masculinity or wounded masculine energy is like you'll be a perpetrator. Oh, that makes sense, doesn't it? You'll abuse power. You'll assert your dominance. You'll be aggressive. You will attempt to control things and people. Being hyper competitive can be wounded masculine energy. You'll be confrontational. You will be a critic. You abuse things and people. There's avoidance, unsupportive, and unstable. All signs of wounded masculine energy. Which
Oftentimes means you were raised in a more feminine, heavy house. I don't understand.
If you have wounded masculine energy, it would not be that it's the interesting thing about masculine energy that is wounded is more times than not, it's not that there was too much feminine energy, but that there was dominant masculine energy, that there was no room for the feminine. And so the way you need to think about it is that a healthy home or a healthy life has a balance of both.
I thought you said for the wounded feminine, it meant that it was a masculine dominant. So both woundings come from masculine dominant homes?
Or if it were feminine dominant energy, yes, it could lead to the same thing. Where I said that it is dominant masculine, that's just where our particular society happens to be. There are very few because of how many women have been forced to dominate or been forced to demonstrate masculine energy. Mm-hmm. Even most homes where it's a single mom raising children, the dominant energy is still masculine energy. But they give 5 main characteristics for feminine energy and then 5 main characteristics for masculine energy. And so the 5 for feminine energy is receptive, passive, contractive, intuitive, and inward. Those are the 5 major feminine emotions or energy that make the feminine energy.
So what, you're supposed to be able to tick all those boxes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And then masculine, it's projective, like vision and seeing out in the future, active, giver, that's really interesting, expansive, and outward. And so there's inward versus outward. Masculine energy is outward focused. Feminine energy is inward focused. So like even if you just took those two right there, like the difference in those two, look at American culture. Most American culture is outward focused. Last week we talked about our children and like why children end up fighting against each other because they're all outward focused. Like we have created a culture in the home that says you have to perform out there. You have to be better than people out there. Right. And that's all masculine energy.
Right.
Versus like, no, you actually have to be balanced and have a healthy inward focus on yourself and on our family. And then that allows you to be outward. And so then there's like contractive is female and expansive is male. Well, we definitely live in an environment where it's all about like expansion. American culture, like expansion, active versus passive. I'm guilty of this. Very few of us rest. So feminine energy is like, oh yeah, it's passive, but then masculine is active. And so the whole point in all of this is just like finding balance. And you can't, and here was the point of my content from the weekend. If mankind was made as what Genesis says, as a carbon copy of God, that like we get the chance to show people what God consciousness looks like and bring heaven to earth, which is this whole thing that we need to do an episode on. Folks, you're not going to some distant land. You're supposed to bring heaven to earth. We cannot do that if we don't accurately bear the image of God. And the only way to do that is to be balanced with your masculine versus feminine energy. And the effed up church, which is supposed to be like the manufacturing facility of healthy individuals, got seduced into becoming a power entity like government that controlled people and made it about themselves and their own organization versus about the people. And so every culture, every city, every community is a reflection of the church, which is a group of people that gather. It's not a building. Every community is a reflection of the health of the actual church, the gathering of the people in that community. And what I was trying to say is the reason why the world wants nothing to do with the church is because it is masculine energy dominant, which means you're only getting to see 50% of God. You're not getting to see the full picture.
Right. Okay, so based on what you said about masculine and feminine energy, and we have both. We do have both. It's just whether or not yours is suppressed or not, and whether or not yours is healthy.
Correct.
Right. A couple of things. Like the list that you read off feels a little bit to me like constrictive. Like we all have to fit inside of this box.
Sure.
Which I think oftentimes we talk about like blowing up the boxes.
Yeah.
So can you say a little bit about that first?
Yeah. Well, it's not, I mean, it's balanced. And that's the thing that people need to understand. You don't need to, this should not be thought of as a linear check mark, like a thing to check things off of, as much as like a teeter-totter, that you have a balance between your feminine and masculine energy, that you're practicing both and you've leveled out.
I guess what makes me uncomfortable about it is like losing people losing like their individualism, like what makes them.
Yeah.
But if we're all like striving to be like both passive and you know what I mean?
Well, then most people's them is not them anyways, because if we're talking about energy, and energy is no different than fertilizer that helps you become you. And so all of these things are foundational energies inside of you that have to be present in order for you to reach your full potential. And so what you look like as a musician, or what you look like as a mother, or what you look like as a podcaster is all being determined by the energy that is underneath of you. And so in this case, like you want this as the nutrients, you want to view this as the nutrients in your soil, that you have, you're balanced. It's like, recently, like I was trying to figure out like why chlorine would not work.
Gosh, you have so many hot tub stories.
Yeah, well.
It's wild.
I was trying to figure out like why the chlorine wouldn't work, and it's because the pH was too low. And so when I brought the pH up, the chlorine was just fine, and it worked just fine. And that's how we need to view ourselves when it comes to like, if you're out there and you're frustrated because you seem to like miss your potential, or like that you have more than this and the opportunities aren't coming, it's not because the chlorine won't work. It will, but the environment has to be right and your soil has to be balanced. And in Mark chapter 3, that's how Jesus described our heart. He described it as a soil. And like, if you talk to, what are the people that come and look at trees and like,
Arborist?
yeah, something like an arborist.
Okay.
They're going to look at the soil. They're going to look at whatever the roots are in. And so the way to think about this is like, is my soil, is my heart balanced? Do I have the right amount of enzymes and nutrients in the soil? And then the individuality of what you're talking about comes up and out of that. Like the fruit is what you're talking about, like what's on the tree. And we want it to be plump and a lot of it, we want it to be rich and full. And that all comes from the soil. And so this masculine and feminine energy, we're talking about like the balance of your soil.
Okay, so what if someone's like, yep, I'm out of balance, which is probably most of us.
Yeah, it is in American culture. It's a lot of us. I would say, start studying masculine and feminine energy. And like, even just that list that I just went through, like these are characteristics that you can like write on your mirror at home. Like and most of us are going to be masculine dominant. Write out some of the characteristics of feminine energy, put it on a rubber band or wherever you want to keep it in front of you. Put it on a note and take a screenshot and put it as the wallpaper of your phone. I don't know. But like start trying to live into and be more aware of that energy in your life and realize that if you were born into American culture, whether you live here or not, because American culture now is in other countries, it's a hustle culture, and it's not going to get you to where you want to go because most of the time that leads to being imbalanced. When I think it's 6 or 7 times now that women have come to Body Garage and they've tried to get pregnant and they can't get pregnant.
Not at Body Garage. They've been trying to get pregnant
at home.
Or where?
Yeah, and they come to Body Garage to have energetic work done. Every single time, every one of them, I don't know the number now, 6 or 7, every one of them have gotten pregnant. And all we do in order to balance them out is there's a spot inside of their right hip on their masculine side where we release it, and all of them have gotten pregnant. True story.
About to have a little Emotionships baby boom with all our listeners.
Yeah, babies galore. Hear it.
Whew. Yeah, that's very. So go ahead. So what is that spot? I feel like
it's just on it's on the right side, just inside of the hip, and just like understanding how it works. Like there's a block there that energetically, I can't explain all of the science to it. All I can tell you is every single person that has come to us because they could not get pregnant and they heard from somebody that will do an energy release, it's the right side that we release and try to balance them out, and they get pregnant. Mm-hmm. The last person, I think I've said this on a podcast before, happened a year and a half ago, and I'm like, oof, they've got so many underlying health conditions. I think this is going to ruin our record. But they got pregnant. Yeah. The baby's here and healthy today.
It's wild.
Yeah.
One thing that I think can be difficult in these conversations, I'm very leaning into my feminine right now.
Yeah, for sure. Go.
Feelings is,
and sometimes when you lean into your feminine energy, like it makes me uncomfortable because I have been like raised and dominated by a masculine energy, competitive energy.
Well, I don't know. This is more of an awareness that a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, we're talking about the homes that we were raised in, that in and of itself can bring up a lot of feelings of just recognizing where maybe your parents, of course, they fell short because they're human beings, but where they fell short or where they raised you in an environment that is now leading you to exhibit whatever you're exhibiting these days. Like I think it can bring up a lot about our childhoods, especially if we have not yet done a lot of work around our upbringing or our childhood and have idealized it a lot.
Yeah.
How has that, well, I don't know. You don't have to speak to that, but maybe just, you don't have to speak to it personally, but I think that can add a little bit of static to like the work of finding balance potentially.
So how would you explain that or walk someone through that in your own life, like out of your own experience? Because you've done a good job. You've gotten there working through your feelings.
Well, I think there can be a lot of grief or anger or whatever about what you did not know about the environment that you were raised in. And then if you're in a spot where your kids are older, can be especially hard, because then you feel like, well, I missed out on like giving my kids what I didn't have. And now I know.
Sure.
And so I guess I'm more just acknowledging that if somebody is listening and they want to like really dive into this, like it comes at a cost.
Sure.
Like there's a lot, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that can come up regarding the like nuclear family relationships that you have, both in the family you were raised in and the family that you have or are raising.
Yeah.
And that can be really painful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other side of it is one of the things that we can do for people right now is like, you are allowed to feel your feelings. Now, the truth of the matter is like, you need to understand that there's a stimulant that causes energy to move. We call that emotion, right? So energy on the move is emotion. And then when that hits you, you have a feeling, you feel it. And it's your job to like befriend the feeling versus own it, right? Like it doesn't have to be a limiting belief in the fact that this situation has caused me to feel this way, right? It's caused me to feel sad. I don't have to be sad because it caused me to feel sad, or maybe it will make me sad and I need to acknowledge why and figure out what's behind that. But like, it starts with giving yourself permission to feel your feelings, but you can't stay there. The win is not in just feeling your feelings. It's then figuring out why you are feeling that way and then tracing it back to that stimulant that caused it in the first place, to say, maybe I have an unhealthy relationship to that person, that place, that thought, or that thing. And then the ego, which is Latin for I, basically means that you want to detach and take the power away from whatever caused you to feel that way, because you have, and only you, have given it permission to cause you to feel that way. And so when we have an appropriate relationship to anything in life, within reason, we take its power away from, we take power away from it to hurt us. We can grieve over something, but not in a way that is absent of hope or that makes it out of balance, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm tracking with you.
Well, so for example, like if I lose grandmother, right, if she passes away, well, then grieve over that. And you feel sad, and you should feel sad. But really that sadness is rooted and grounded in joy and good memories. And you feel that loss.
Right.
And there's an appropriate time to go through that grieving process.
Yeah.
That's different than losing a job or losing a title that made you feel like you were significant, and now because that is gone, you are upset. That is a classic example of where your ego, who you are, your sense of who you are as a person, attached to that, and that started to manipulate you through emotion and through feelings.
Okay, rather than grief or sadness, can you walk us through that with the emotion of anger?
Sure.
Because I think for me, and for a lot of us, we get stuck in expressing the anger and we can't like continue that loop that you just talked about.
Well, from what I know and what I've experienced is anger is associated with a lack of control. And so when our ego attaches to, like, let's say our children or our grandchildren, and we think that they should behave a certain way, which it's understandable, but doesn't make a lot of sense. And they behave differently because they are a human being. They're an adult in training. Then I get angry because the picket fence that I built around them or that thought or that situation did not contain them, which means there's more work for me and more risk and potentially more fear because of more danger. And so what I know about anger is anger tends to, not always, but tends to be an emotion that is heavily associated with control. And so when you say something or do something to me that is out of my control, then I get angry because it is a response to say, I tried to protect myself or I deserve better, and that it still happened, and therefore I am angry. You can be angry in a healthy way when it comes to like someone taking advantage of someone else because there is a sense or need for justice written on your heart. Like you recognize that and you want justice or fairness to happen. And you get angry when you see, young girls being sold into the sex trafficking industry. But most time when it's our anger, it's because our ego has attached to something, an idea, and that is now taken from us. Often it's a surprise, and it often before we have time to think about it, anger is a natural response to things being taken out of our control.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you, or what would you say in response to what I just said? If you think of an example where you have been angry?
No, it resonates a lot. It's just that I think for me, I can like get on board with the grieving process a little bit easier than anger. And a lot of that is, the imbalance of feminine and masculine energy, but some of it is like, I can get fiery and I can't continue the process to like the ego part. I just stop at the fiery. Does it make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Do you have an idea for why that is, or why would you guess as to why that is?
Because it's easier to just be angry.
Well,
if we're talking control, then if you take it to the ego part, that's where I have to release, like ultimately release control, acknowledge release of control.
Well, and all of those things are right. But often anger is a protection mechanism. It's a pre-programmed response to people that have been hurt or disappointed a lot. And so often people get angry to create distance. And distance is to breathe and to collect their thoughts. And so what I know of you is you kind of have the odds stacked against you because you're a processor. And so if you have been hurt in the past and you are a processor, then what I know is that you will tend to have anger as a response to get somebody or a situation out of your immediate way in order to give you time to think about it. Mm-hmm. And because you're a processor, the first barn that you run to that's on fire is the situation, not the anger part. Like when I would imagine, and I want you to respond to this, like if someone does something that makes you feel out of control or like they purposely came after you, you get angry, and I imagine your mind is going to run to trying to figure out what just happened first and foremost, not how do I get my anger under control.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And that's with all of this, that's, it's a lot to think about in how, like we talked about last week, what we're modeling for our kids.
Yeah.
Because I want my kids to feel free to express anger, but in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And just having like a big outburst and then stomping away, I don't know that's going to get them very far.
Well, yeah, I agree. What's crazy is if you were raised in a faith, an evangelical environment, more chances than not, you as a parent or grandparent have accidentally fallen under the trance of this really bad theology that was primarily driven by systems wanting to control people, which I'm going to talk about this upcoming week. And like you'll be out to dinner with your kids and your kids will act up, and without even knowing it, to protect your image and your family's image at that restaurant, you will basically tell them to quit being a human being and quit feeling what they're feeling in order to make yourself look better.
Right. But oftentimes the way that you say it gets everyone's attention anyway, and you ruined your reputation anyway.
For sure.
I've seen some really awkward encounters with people trying to discipline
because
their kids.
the parents feel out of control.
Yeah.
And so they use anger to try to either create distance or, in the case of children, to get the kids back in the fence, to get the people back into demonstrating the behavior that they wanted them to demonstrate. I'll never forget my 16th birthday. I had a bunch of guys over. It was a Friday. Saturday morning, we had a soccer match. And so it was cold out. My birthday's in December. We knew that we had to get up early. We didn't want to go far to toilet paper somebody. So we made
Why do you have to toilet paper somebody?
Because you're high school.
16.
You're high school guys.
Okay.
But it's like, let's do something different. And I made a bomb.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, this might have to be censored, Gelman. I made a bomb out of a 2-liter where you put aluminum foil and like you make aluminum foil sticks and you put it in the 2-liter. This is more than 25 years ago, folks. And then there are other things that you put in there. I don't want to give anybody any ideas. And we ended up blowing up a mailbox, which is not. I did it better than I thought I would do it.
Okay, that's something.
And so we wake up the next morning.
Was it more fun than toilet papering?
Oh yeah, it was wild. So we run and we put it in this mailbox.
Your mailbox?
No, a neighbor's mailbox. Thank God they were kind to us. We put it in a neighbor's mailbox. There's 16 of us, right? And so like everybody's amped.
Oh my gosh.
There's 15 or 16 of us. Everybody's amped.
So it's a real undercover operation.
Yeah. It's like a zoo. And what's the movie with Chris Rock as like the giraffe or the zebra? Yeah, Madagascar. Like we're running like a zoo, and we throw this. I put this 2-liter in the mailbox, put the door on, and like we're all running, laughing, and it's my neighbor. So we lay in the front yard. We're all laying in the front yard, like waiting for it to go off. And like a minute goes by and it's only supposed to last a minute and then it blows. And like it's a minute and 30 seconds. I'm like, oh man, I must have got like my proportions wrong. And then all of a sudden, almost at 2 minutes, this thing goes off and it was like you were at Disney.
Oh.
The cannon went off and it was just like, we rolled in the grass and laughed because of how loud this was. So we go back in the house, go to bed, get up the next morning. The game starts at 8. It's
just
30 minutes away.
debris everywhere. You didn't do a thing.
No, we didn't look at it. So we wake up the next morning and we're driving to the game and like the post is shredded. Not only the mailbox, the post is shredded. And so I get back from the game and there's only like one friend that comes home with me. Everybody else goes home. And I walk into the kitchen and my dad is standing there with his arms crossed.
Yeah.
Now, if you haven't met my dad, he's former law enforcement, very intimidating fighter, all of that stuff.
Right.
And he goes, I'm gonna ask you one time.
Oh no.
The police were here.
Did your friend just run away?
Oh,
that poor one friend that came back.
We were feeling it. And he says, I'm going to ask you one time. The police were here. Did you have anything to do with our neighbor's mailbox blowing up? And I was like, no.
What?
What do you mean, what?
Why would you?
Of course that's the way you respond. You should have heard the way my dad asked it.
I don't know. I think it's scarier to lie, don't you?
Well,
he knows it's you. Okay.
He says, okay, it is a federal offense.
Oh, no.
For you to blow up a mailbox. The police were here. I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you blow up the mailbox? If you did, I can help you. If you did and you're not going to admit to it, you are on your own.
Okay.
And so I just squealed.
Sure.
Right? And I got it.
Did you cry?
No. I'm just now
Come on,
learning.
feminine energy.
Right, I know. But the point is, like, anger tries to control people, right? So the problem with it is when we create environments where we have to get angry in order for people to be honest, people will never be honest unless we're angry. And so we do that on accident as parents because we have been taught by a church that says any feeling other than happy feelings are not godly feelings. Mm-hmm. And what we end up doing as being the people that are supposed to be cultivating healthy cultures and healthy societies and healthy communities is making people very, very dysfunctional because they can't be a human. And they can't be a human because they don't have a balance of masculine and feminine energy.
Right.
And literally, the large majority of Jesus' ministry was directed toward women. Women were those that were marginalized. Women were the outcast of Jesus' day. And that's why he was considered to be a fake teacher and not a real rabbi, because of just even the fact that he spoke with women disqualified him from being real. But this started to happen right after the Garden of Eden. That the accuser of the brethren, Lucifer, Satan, literally tried to turn half of the image against the other half. And so Judaism treated women to be just a little bit better than farm animals. Jesus came on the scene and is talking with women and empowering women. And I was showing this past weekend where it was women that stayed with him, and it was women that financed his ministry. And like, it was women that saw him first resurrect. It was women that were at the foot of the cross, all of these things. And so Jesus comes in and he redeems a masculine-driven, masculine-dominant approach to life. And then it takes 300 years before Constantine gets a hold of Christianity and literally strips the feminine energy out of it again. And so, you know, the rise of feminism today is the world saying, if the church isn't going to do it, we're going to do it, right? Because the law of God is written on our heart. Yeah. And so the healthy people and even, you know, people that are not completely healthy have a sense of what is right and wrong. And so feminism is the rising up of mankind longing to be in balance. And so that's why I say, if the church doesn't get it right and start helping people live into their masculine and their feminine side, then someone else is going to step in and try to cultivate an environment where people can be fully human, which is fully like God. In the image of God, he created them male and female. We need both sides of that energy.
So good.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's at. And so if you can't feel your feelings, or if your value is demonstrated by your ability to play the part and look the right way, we are literally being counterproductive, that we will never raise our children or our grandchildren to become who they can be, because the soil of their heart will always be imbalanced. Mm-hmm. And it's like nothing, you know, I can remember early on being our first time homeowner, I was obsessed with like wanting my grass to look a certain way.
Oh, sure.
And it's like, what you don't realize is if you put too much of one kind of fertilizer on there and it's not balanced, it's not going to work. You can throw all of the water in the world on a lawn, and if the soil is not balanced, it does not work. And so a lot of people are frustrated today, and we have all of these gender and identity issues, not because the raw components are not there and people don't want truth. That's not it. The soil is so far out of balance, nothing else works. And it really frustrates me that the church, and I don't know, a lot of it is unintentional, but we're very hypocritical when we start making gender issues a political thing, instead of saying, what did we, the church, that are supposed to be the light and salt of the world, what did we have to do with this? And again, you know, when I say that the church is supposed to be leading the world, or else the world will lead the church. You've got to think of it as a cycle. And so that cycle always comes back and completes itself. And so if the church isn't being what it's supposed to be, light and salt and caring for others and balanced in its masculine and feminine energy, which is why we would care for our neighbor, right? Like story of the Good Samaritan, all feminine energy. There's masculine energy in it too, but it's primarily feminine energy. If we're not promoting that, we are the ones that are influencing society, which is influencing and educating our doctors, our attorneys, our judges, like our teachers, our professors, our chefs. Like if the church isn't creating an environment that produces real results, balanced results, then people go elsewhere. And then that comes back to influence the church. And so I have a problem with people that want to legislate morality or try to bring usher in the kingdom via politics, because the way it works is one lost sheep at a time. Quit trying to vote in a Christian president, which is an oxymoron, and instead just be who you need to be. Balance your energy and be light and salt yourself, and everything will take care of itself.
Sure. The church should not be bringing anything to politics. Sexuality, gender, otherwise, whatever.
Well, I mean, it doesn't work. And so, I mean, how many people, according to 1 Timothy 2, where male chauvinistic, because again, there was a brief period of time where Jesus empowered women to be a main part of expanding the kingdom. Rome literally and purposely got women out of it, no different than Judaism did hundreds of years before that. How many of us were raised in an environment where there was someone in question if a woman was on the platform? Sure. A woman can't be a preacher. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Yeah. It's funny how the people that are so certain about what the Bible says are the people that don't study it themselves, but instead rely upon what someone else told them. Yep. And the epistles are 2,000, not 20 years old, 2,000 years old, full of culture and context in foreign countries. And like 3% of the people could read and write during that time. There is so much lost in translation, it's not even funny. And so the word there is peaceful. A woman should, in 1 Timothy 2, a woman should be peaceful. The Boys Club translated that as silent, that a woman should learn in silence. And so you have jackasses living in, the last 50 years that are still standing on that and preaching like they actually know what that is talking about. And their level of certainty appropriately displays their ignorance.
Mm-hmm. It takes us back to where we're talking about the importance of curiosity.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe I can read this line of scripture, but maybe there's a whole lot of other things going on here.
Well, and smart people embrace uncertainty and curiosity. I have that big picture hanging in my lobby. First thing you see when you walk in.
In my lobby?
Oh, well, what do you call it?
Oh my gosh. Are you talking about your house?
Yeah, what do you call it?
Did you just say you have a lobby?
You know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
What is it? Foyer?
Yes.
Yeah, foyer. Okay.
Gosh.
But that's what Einstein said. Like, I have no particular skill. I'm just passionately curious.
Yeah.
That's it. And so smart people are curious. Smart people embrace uncertainty. Wounded people embrace certainty. Oh, we got to make these things certain so I don't get hurt again. And they don't even know it. God bless them.
God bless them, for sure. God bless us.
God bless us all.
I think we're good. Shut her down. Oh, wait. Did we get Oh, yeah. Oh, do we have a question from the audience?
Hold on. We have a question coming in hot.
Hold on. This better be good. Okay. It's not good.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen.
Is your Peloton and hot tub in your lobby?